Joining me today, we have Josh Bleggi. He's a learning solutions engineer here at ELB Learning, and he is going to tell you all about this new feature.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie, and welcome everyone. It's excited to have you all here, and it's just going to be hopefully a fun hour that we'll have together here. So, kind of our goal today is to show you how AI can help you build a CVR scenario faster, and so that's really what we're going to be doing most of the day today. But before we get started here, I do have a quick question for everyone, and Stephanie does have this as a poll that she'll put up on the screen for you, but and the question here is, do you currently use any AI tools in your workflow? And then yes or no, it's simply yes or no answer. But we'd also just invite those of you that say yes to say, what tools are you using? How do you find it useful? In the chat real quick. If you're also saying, no, I don't, maybe give some reasons as to why. Maybe there's some concerns there around privacy, or maybe something in there for you, or maybe it's just, you just haven't had the chance to experiment with them. It'd be nice to just hear everyone's feedback and really get to know, what, how many of you are using it, how many of you aren't, and then we'll kind of get into the actual bulk of the building the scenario today. So,
All right, so I am going to share those results on the screen. So it looks like we do have a handful are using tools currently, but the majority of the people are not yet. And in the chat, we're getting a lot of people saying Chat GPT. I think that's probably the most well-known one so far.
Okay. And we have somebody saying, haven't had the opportunity to experiment, not sure how it will apply. Okay. And yeah, it seems like ChatGPT is the predominant winner. I don't know if everyone has seen those memes or TikTok videos where they're, knocking on somebody's door saying, hey, can I talk to you about our Lord and Savior, ChatGPT? It really does seem like that thing has taken over the world in a way, not in a scary Skynet kind of way quite yet, but
Yeah.
but it could get there. You can see it, but it's actually a really useful tool. And there's a lot of things that make that very useful. It's that kind of the ease of use of having a chat with somebody and generating content. And for those of you that aren't sure how it would apply in your role, really what it's there for, in my opinion, is to really, help you develop content, like come up with, maybe explanations of things or questions for topics that you're talking about, those types of things. That's actually what I used it for here today. And it becomes a very, very useful tool. Now, does it get you all the way there to where you should be or where you want to be with your content? No, you're definitely going to have to go in there and, add your own style and things to it, but it does get you a good majority of the way there. And there's other tools out there that really help out with, generating images, generating, obviously like the most common one I think that we actually use that we don't always think about as AI, as e-learning developers is going to be, a text to speech engine as well. So those AI generated voices there. So that might change some people's answers if they hear that, but those are all different things that are utilizing artificial intelligence to help us do our jobs faster and easier. And personally, I don't think that it's really in a spot where it's going to, take over the world, take over people's jobs, but there's always going to need to be a human component because those AIs generally are only as smart as the information that's out there on the internet, which was, mostly, at least, from the time of its inception, was put out there by humans. And so there's always going to be a component that's going to require us in most cases. There is chances, obviously, where it could take over certain industries and things like that. But what we're going to be doing here today, so thank you all for answering that question. So what we're actually going to do today is part of, what the premise of this webinar was to show you, how we're going to build, how to use AI to help build a scenario. So what we're going to do is I'm going to be building what I'm calling a roguelike inspired scenario using ChatGPT and Bard as kind of my content engine, as well as our AI wizard that's built into CenarioVR that was released a couple of weeks ago. And we'll also showcase a variety of other CVR features. So if you haven't used CVR before, this will be a good introduction to the potential of this tool as well. If you are using CVR already, maybe this will give you some tips and tricks of how to work within the tool a bit better. And that's really what we're going to do today. Now, I put this term up here, roguelike, as a scenario. So what a roguelike is, if you don't know from, if you're not familiar with that as a game terminology, essentially it's a kind of a dungeon crawl type game that's going to generally have like randomized encounters, and different other aspects to it. One of the key components of it is also permadeath, which basically means that you have to start over if you fail. And that's some of the things that we're going to build into this scenario. So there's going to be a bit of gamification in the scenario as well, as well as showing off other features here. So without further ado, let's actually get into the scenario that we're going to build today. So what I'm going to show you here is basically in concept what we are going to build. So basically the game mechanics and things here that we will be utilizing. So so this is kind of the structure that we're going with. Now, the theme of this game right now, it is very medieval sword and sorcery type things, because I am a very nerdy person, as many people that know me will tell you. I LARP and I do other things as well that are highly nerdy. So when I heard this new feature was called the AI Wizard, I couldn't unsee, someone like that as kind of the personification of this feature. So I kind of built this in here as kind of part of my example here. But what we're seeing right now, so any of the assets that are built into this scenario right now are either generated via AI, so the 360 images that we're seeing here were generated via AI in our AI wizard, which will kind of show exactly how that works here in a little bit. Or they were built, like a lot of the content, the questions, and a lot of the text that you'll see was generated using ChatGPT or Bard when ChatGPT was too busy. And so we'll be pulling that in as well. And a lot of these graphics here were built either by me or pulled in from our asset library, like our wizard friend here was pulled in from our asset library. And a lot of the icons and things that you'll see are from the ELB asset library as well. So essentially all the tools like come with your ELB subscription if you're using that. And you'll have all those things put together outside of maybe going out to these other things like ChatGPT and things like that and pulling in content. So before we actually start into the build, I actually wanted to show you how this scenario looks and how it flows right now. There is still, I'll be honest, there's still a few things that I would like to add to it, like some more sound effects and a voiceover and things for some of these characters. I actually had to pull those out just because I ran out of time to do a quality job with it. And so I wanted to make sure that I had something that I could show you. And then we'll try to recreate this as best we can with a few caveats to that, which I'll explain later on. We probably won't get through building this entire scenario in this time that we have together, but I do want to kind of show you some of the basics of how this thing was built. So that way you can maybe build it yourselves or whatnot. I do plan to, like I said, add some more embellishments to this file and then include it hopefully in the public scenarios as well. So that way you could go in there and download it and use it as a base for any project you might have in the future where you think this could be applicable. So let's go ahead and get into this little adventure here, shall we? So since I didn't get a chance to put in voiceover, I'm going to do the voiceover here. So this was generated with ChatGPT, and it's kind of a fun experiment because I went through this whole conversation with it. Like if it could come up over here, this conversation actually got called a wizard quiz. I did not name it that. ChatGPT just decided that's what this is going to be called. And so I started out by asking it to give me some instructions to kind of, as if they were a wise old wizard. And it's interesting because it started out by saying, it kind of put itself into the instructions here. But then eventually I told it, okay, make it more Old English sounding. And so it did that. Okay, now change your name to Carl. So I kind of went through this whole conversation with it and had it, now, okay, write a threatening message from a dragon. This actually didn't make it into the final scenario quite yet. Asked it to help me name the quest here. So the name that you're seeing up here was actually one that they came up with, that this AI engine came up with. And then I kind of came back to it a few days later and asked it, okay, now can you, add a few more, like I get more parameters to work with. And it really did a good job in fine tuning it to become this kind of message that we're seeing here today within the scenario. So right now we have Carl here, greeting you as an adventurer. And so let me go ahead and just kind of read this as Carl the wizard here. So greetings, adventurer. I am Carl, a wise and ancient wizard. Thou hast come seeking knowledge on the subject of artificial intelligence, but beware, for the journey shall not be easy. Along the way, thou shalt face many challenges and obstacles, greatest of which is the dragon named Smolder, which a name I just randomly came up with. Smolder is not just any dragon, but a fierce protector of the Ruby Dragonstone, a powerful and rare gem that he guards with his life. To face Smolder and claim the Ruby Dragonstone, thou must answer 3 more questions to prove thy worthiness. Failure to do so shall incur his wrath, and thou may find thyself in grave peril. But do not lose heart, for with knowledge and courage thou shalt emerge victorious. Remember to listen closely to each question and answer with honesty and care. Now go forth and face the challenges that await thee, and may the light of the wisdom guide thy path. One thing that you'll learn, at least I noticed with ChatGPT, is it's pretty wordy. It actually spits out, like, even if you ask it to be brief, it tends to be still pretty long. Like if you ask it for 2 sentences, it tends to give you 2 very long sentences. So just kind of keep that in mind. You may need to refine that a bit. And if anybody that uses it has tips on how to refine that a bit, that'd be appreciated to share that. But let's get back into the scenario here. So now we have some hotspots here that are going to pop up some content for us. And I'm not going to read through all of this just for time's sake here, but and now that we've seen all 3 points here, we're given a key onto this new room. Now what's going on now is you see that I have this hit point meter up here. I have an XP meter. These are kind of game mechanics that are built into this. So as I go through these next questions, what's going to happen is as I get questions correct, I will earn XP, but this XP is going to be weighted depending on how many attempts I've had at each question. So if I answer it correctly after 1 attempt, I'm going to get the most experience points. If I answered after 3 or more, I'm going to get less. And also, as I'm getting these questions incorrect, I'm also going to start losing health and opportunity, and this is going to start ticking down on me as well. So like there is a chance that I could fail out of this as I go through. So let's go ahead and kind of answer some of these questions here. So we see that went down on me there. Now I got the question correct. I get 50 experience points. Okay, so something different that's happening in this scene is now we're going to pop up the questions in a sequential order. And so this one's going to get answered first. It's going to pull up the second one and the third and final question here. If you notice, I only have 1 attempt left. So if I get 1 more answer wrong, I'm going to fail out and have to actually restart this entire scenario. I'm going to attempt not to do that. And you'll notice that that's going to be extremely easy, just how this was built out. But you'll see that I'll continue to earn experience points here as well. Oh, well, I toggled that off, so that was a little mistake on my part there. So I go through here. So there's both my first questions, then my final one here. And now there's the giant ruby dragonstone there. So now Carl comes back, and since I didn't get all the points that I possibly could there, I'm given the option to restart my quest. If I did get a perfect score, I'd be able to just continue on and exit the course here. So so that's kind of the scenario that we're going to build here. At least mechanically speaking, that's what we're going to attempt to build. Now, like I said, we only have 45 minutes, 40 minutes or so here. And so really where we're going to focus on is actually building out this particular scene right here where we have the questions. Stephanie, was there a
Yes,
question?
quick question. So you are
Yes.
obviously showing this to us on a desktop.
Mhm.
If the learner was wearing a headset, would they be able to like walk around? How do they get to the questions? They would just be kind of like walking and seeing the questions pop up.
Right. Yeah. So they would be able to look around and see the different questions, be able to use the controllers to interact with the hotspots there, be able to do the drag and drop with the controllers as well. And so they just be, rather than experiencing like we're doing here with a mouse and a computer, they'd have that more immersive experience of using that headset.
All right. And then if you were, say, wanting to deliver this asynchronously, you could put this in your LMS and the learners would
Mhm.
click on the link and get to it that way.
Right, exactly. So yeah, we have a variety of different publish options in CenarioVR. So that can be anything from a SCORM file in an LMS to utilizing just a web link, or even importing these into like a storyline or a Lectora file as part of a bigger learning module. So it is all very very flexible in how it can be delivered to your audience.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's get into the actual build here. So we're going to need some audience participation. So Stephanie, you probably actually shouldn't have gone away quite yet here. So we're going to start creating a new scenario here. Now, this is going to emulate this one that we just experienced from a mechanical standpoint, meaning like the answer to the questions is going to have that, we're going to have that health meter, we're going to have that XP thing going on. But it doesn't necessarily need to be wizard themed in this case. And so what we're going to do is actually pull up our AI wizard. So all you do is hit create new scenario here, and then you'll have this new option underneath my scenes for AI wizard. So you still have the option to upload your own content. So for those of you that have a 360 camera that can go out and capture images or videos, you can still utilize those. We haven't taken that functionality away. And I think that's going to be very good for a lot of people that are trying to build very specific on the job training to different roles that are within their company. Where the AI wizard kind of comes into play is if you're like, I just need a generic warehouse or something like that. I don't really have time to go out and capture an image of it. I just want one up here. I can actually now generate that via AI. Or like we saw there, I can take people into fantastical worlds. If I want to go do a training on the moon, I can totally do that. But it gives you that option. So where this kind of helps out is for those of you that don't have that 360 camera or need kind of more flexibility in what your scenes are than what you're able to capture via that camera. Um, and so it gives you a lot of new flexibility, especially if you're actually coming into a trial of CVR. This is available to you as well, and so that way you don't need to necessarily invest in that other hardware. If you're trying to make a case for your boss, you can just show them, here's what I already created with this, um, you know, and it's quite cool on how it all works. And there is a blog explaining all this step by step as well that is out there. Stephanie, I don't know if we can throw that in the chat or something for them.
We can.
But that's out there too. As you'll notice, I did take a wizard theme with that blog as well. Again, I just can't unsee it just being who I am. So that's what's in there. But essentially, when you click on this AI wizard, you get brought to this dialog box here. And it allows you to type in a description as well as select a category. And you have a variety of different categories you can choose from. It defaults to realistic, but you can come in here and say, okay, I want a sky view, I want an interior view, I want it to be more dreamlike, I want it to be fantasy, modern computer animation, uh, Nebula. I'm not exactly sure what that one does. I haven't experienced with it, but you have a whole different option, a lot of different options here that you can pull from. So you can really make some really fantastical different things. And so what I want from you guys as the audience is, can you give me a description of something, of a scene that you're wanting to build? It could be something that is applicable to your work, or it could just be something you're like, I just want to see if this thing can pull up this really crazy scene. And just kind of throw those in the chat, and Stephanie and I will pick one here that looks kind of interesting here, and we'll need a couple more of these. So if you want to just keep throwing stuff in there that you
Yeah.
want to see.
Throw all your best ideas in, preferably ones that involve puppies, although I don't think Josh will let me pick those because they're not very business oriented.
There's puppy ones, huh?
No one has sent anything with puppies yet. That's just my dream.
Oh,
Um,
okay. So let me actually so to give you guys some ideas here, let me actually pull up um, some examples of other images that were created with this. And if I can't
I will say
find,
we've definitely got some people who are all in on our sort of nerdy fantasy vibe that we're
oh,
going with.
really?
We
Okay.
have had Mordor as a suggestion and also
Mordor.
something
Okay.
Star Trek-ish. But I
Yeah.
think perhaps we should go. Okay, thank you, Tracy, for a veterinarian's office waiting room with lots of puppies. We do have some more perhaps practical suggestions
Okay.
as a hospital ER with lots of equipment and monitors. So,
Hospital
so maybe we go with that.
ER with
Lots of
lots
equipment and monitors.
and monitors. Okay, we'll go with that one. We'll use some of your more fantastical ones here in a little bit because we can kind of take this thing as a multiversal journey here. So, um, and kind of going through this, but let's go ahead. Once you hit generate, you can actually just hit enter, which is what I did there. Once you type in your description, obviously you have a character count here that you can go up to, and that's going to start generating your image. Now, again, much like these other AI tools, depending on how often this is getting hit and things like that, you might notice some, it takes a little bit more time to think and things like that. It's usually pretty quick, within, just a few moments, like I just said right there. And then you'll get this preview of your scene here. So you can actually navigate this a bit more too to make sure that it's what you want to use. This doesn't seem quite ER-y to me.
It's
So maybe
not very, it's not very like hospital-y.
yeah, let me try this again. So like you always have the option, like if you don't like what you have there, you can always use this a different way. So if I go hospital, emergency room
Yeah, maybe typing out emergency room.
with lots of equipment,
Maybe say medical equipment.
medical equipment. Okay.
Yeah,
Get more specific with it.
we gotta teach the AI what we want.
And then maybe rather than going realistic, let's actually go with an interior view and see what that gets us as well. So you do have this option where you can play with these different categories. Obviously, like Stephanie and I were doing, where you can refine the description as well. Because much like any other AI, like I was using the Chat GPT example earlier, you get much better results as you feed it more information. And so putting things in here, like if I just put hospital, it's probably not going to give me anything very good. It might be a generic hospital scene, it might not be, but yeah, this is a little better so far. I mean, still a lot of monitors and things, but we do have a hospital. We do have a bed.
And so we do have a question in the chat of can you upload your own scene? And yes,
You
absolutely.
can.
This is a brand new feature that we just added for those of you who don't want to upload your own scene. Like if you don't want to have to go out and film 360 content, you can let the AI do your work for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So here's our scene as it stands. So it looks like there's a couple other beds in here. There's some monitors and things as well. So we could continue like to go down the path of trying to get more medical equipment and things in there. So if there is a specific machine you're looking for to get in here, you could type that into that description and get it to generate that as well. The other thing that's kind of interesting to do here is within the description, you can also put, I'm looking for this, but I want it with aliens or something like that. And it will go out there and find something to put that in there as kind of an Easter egg for your audience as well. So it can be super practical. It can also just be super fun. And that's the kind of thing with learning these days. We have to find different ways to engage people and immerse them into these different things. And so making it more entertaining, making it shorter as well, like keeping things kind of short and concise, is quite helpful. And I think, VR is going to be one of those things that's going to be very helpful in that. It's going to keep people's attentions. It's going to get them immersed in the situation and help them, help you build better experiences there. So now we're going to start building out our scenario here. So there's a few different things that we're going to have to set up here. Like I said, I have all my assets prepared. So I'm actually going to go ahead and start pulling those in really quick. I can simply just kind of drag and drop my little health meters here on here. And so like if you notice right now, as I drag this around, it's positioning in, around the sphere. But if you noticed in that other scenario, I actually had it locked into the view here. So we'll go ahead and actually come in here and edit this. And one of the cool things with CVR and just kind of a simple like kind of hack around this is like you can either hit this edit button here, but if you're selected on it here in the interface, you can actually just hit enter and it's going to pop up the properties box here. I was, literally just figured this out. I've been using CVR for a couple of years now. I literally just figured out this little tip on Friday. So John, if you're watching, I'm sorry I failed you, but I, just figured this out. And I feel like this is a really helpful tip here that you can just hit enter and it makes it a lot faster to get in here. So this is just as an image here. This is the properties box here. So we have the chance to, make it, visible or invisible. This is on scene load. And so that's where this kind of controls it. So if you're wanting something initially hidden, you would toggle this off. But I'm actually going to make this fixed. And what this is going to do is now pop up this grid within my interface here. And I'm going to go ahead and position this. Now, this is going to be much too large to be a heads up display here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and position this like so. And so now that's up there, ready to go. And I'm going to continue to add the rest of my little graphics here. And so again, going to hit enter, make this thing fixed. And the cool thing here is it's actually going to start kind of snapping to the size of this other one here and then allow me to line it up. Pretty simple here. We'll do this again. Again, making it fixed. Resize it here. And just kind of, rinse and repeat here for a moment. So there we go. So now I have all those in place there. I'm actually also going to throw in my little XP tag here as well. This one's also going to be a fixed position object here. And I'm going to move that up kind of in this corner as well and try to get the size, about the same height as that and move it over here too. But now to kind of finish off this little heads up display up here, I'm actually going to add in just an info card here. And what this is going to do, so I'm going to make this fixed, is actually before I do this, I'm actually going to add in a variable for me here. So I'm just going to come up here and say add variable, and we're just going to call this XP, and we're going to set the initial value to 0. So if you haven't used variables before in CVR or other tools, essentially a variable is just going to be a container for information. So in this case, this is going to contain our experience points as we're going through the scenario. And this is something that can be, tracked and reported on as well. And so we're going to go ahead and hit done there. And now I'm going to actually go up to create my info card here. I'm going to hit that fixed. And to make this so that it's going to display as text, going to do a variable replacement here. I'm going to do the percentage signs around that variable and going to hit done here. And so now that's here. And so I'm actually going to come up here and make this card. Well, actually, maybe we'll keep this one white for now. But kind of come up, pull this up in place up here. And so now when I actually go into preview mode, you'll see that I actually have a 0 there. So it's pulling in that variable replacement. So now that my XP is 0, it's pulling that in here for me. All of my hearts are in place because, again, I haven't gotten any incorrect answers quite yet. So now we're going to start building our questions out here. And I'm actually going to be adding in a few more variables to kind of help with some of the functionality here as well. I tend to use a lot of these in development to help with conditional actions and things like that as I'm going through. So I actually have a whole list that I'm going to put in here. So like I mentioned, I want them to kind of take a hit essentially every time that they get an incorrect answer. So I'm putting a bad attempts variable in here. I'm also going to put in a variable for, question 1 attempt, question 2 attempt, and question 3 attempt. Now, what these are going to track for me is how many times on each of the individual questions, or sorry, they should actually all be 0. How many times on each of the individual questions they've hit incorrect answers. So that way I can see exactly, how many times they've hit that answer. So that way that helps the weighted XP experience here. And so those are going to come into play. And then the last one that's actually going to come into play for this scenario is actually going to be one called question count. And what this is going to do is help trigger the door that's going to show up so that way we can get onto the next phase here. So we're going to now start to build out this this next question here. And so I'm going to go ahead and add a hotspot in here. Now I'm going to bring in one that I've created. Now we do also have a media library in here for you. So if you wanted to just utilize some actions that are built in, you could, but I had this fun little question mark. So I'm going to go ahead and use that as a hotspot here. That's going to help pop up my question. And now I'm going to actually add my question in. So here's my question. We're going to say option A, just for simplicity's sake, is going to be the correct choice here. All the rest of these are going to be incorrect. We're going to add a third choice here as well. Just that simple. We're going to turn off the visibility because I don't want it to be visible when it loads. I also don't want it to just hide on answer because, again, I want them to be able to get incorrect responses to help trigger some of the other things I have going on here. And so now I'm going to go ahead and put in my question text, which I actually forgot to pull over. So maybe we will just keep it as choice 1, choice 2, choice 3, just for simplicity's sake. But you would put in, obviously, your question text here, as well as your different options here as well. So, but now we're going to put in the actions that are associated with each of these correct and incorrect responses. So that way we can, be able to drive some of the mechanics that we're building here. So for this particular one, so when for our first action here on the correct response, so the correct response and the incorrect responses are going to have different actions associated with them, but both the incorrect actions will actually be the same set of interactions. So we'll be able to just copy and paste those along. So there's really 2 different things that we're doing here. So our first one here is we're actually going to go ahead and modify the question 1 attempts variable. And we're going to go ahead and add to that a value of 1. So that means that every time that someone clicks on this, it's going to say, okay, this was 1 attempt. Now, since this is the correct answer, that's going to be the only attempt that's going to happen here. Like if they click on it first, that's going to be the only attempt. If they clicked on this the 3rd time, it's going to pump that up to 3. You're going to have 3 options. It's going to help, again, weight the XP that's going to be out here. And this will all make sense. I know this is maybe a lot of an explanation, but it's going to make sense here in a moment when we get this all figured out. So we're going to modify that variable. We're also going to go ahead and modify the XP variable as well. So we're going to go ahead and add to this variable 100. But we're going to add a condition to this. So this is only going to be if question 1 attempts is equal to 1. So that's going to give them the most experience points as they're going through. Now we're going to do this again, but we're going to modify it so that they only get 50 points this time if that question 1 attempts is equal to 2. And then lastly, just so that they don't go away, once they find the correct answer, just so they don't go away empty-handed, we're going to go ahead and say, okay, modify the variable, XP here, and we're going to add to it 25. But this time, we're going to go ahead and have the if condition be if question 1 is greater than or equal to 3. Now, the reason behind this is although there's only 3 options, there's a chance someone maybe misclicked on as another answer, or they might forget which ones they've already tried. So that way, that gives them that option to still earn points by doing that. Now, the next one that we're going to add to this one is we're going to end up hiding this object when this is answered. This one's pretty simple. And then we're going to modify our other variable to be our question count variable. So that way we're going to add to that 1 here. And then we're going to add another action a little bit later on if we get to the point where we have that locking key available to us. So once we get the door in place, we'll be able to add that one in a little bit later. So now I'm going to go back here and go into my incorrect responses here. And this is going to have a little bit of a different set of actions to it. So in this case, we're still going to modify that question 1 attempts. I'm going to add 1 to that. But in this case, we're also going to modify bad attempts as well and adding to 1. And the next thing that we're going to do here is now hide our 4 health image up here if bad attempts is equal to 1. And we're going to kind of do a whole series of these here to where now 3 is going to be hidden if bad attempts is equal to 2. And then 2 is going to be hidden if bad attempts is equal to 3. And then we're going to hide 1 if it's equal to 4. So that's going to control this health meter up here at the top. Now, we also will add more actions to this a little later on to show a game over screen and things if we get around to it. We're also going to just, and also we'll add those actions a little later on. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and just copy these actions here and paste them over to my other incorrect answer here, since it's going to be the same things that are going to happen there. So we're going to go ahead and hit back, hit done. And so now let's kind of see how this is all working here really quick. So as I click on this, did I forget to add the show action? Apparently I did. Let me go ahead and fix that really quick. Question 1 here, okay. So now as we click on these incorrect answers, you'll notice that it's now taking away those hearts. And when I get this answer, since that was my 3rd attempt, it's now giving me 25. So that's what's driving this whole thing forward. Now, to create the other questions, you would simply just copy and paste these 2 things here. We'll actually go ahead and I'll just add these to a layer. So within CenarioVR, there are a concept of both layers and groups. Groups are going to keep items kind of relative to each other. So as you move them, they kind of keep them essentially on a more flat plane to each other. And you'll be able to, just reposition them that way. Layers, it gives you a bit more freeform in how you move everything, but it does keep them grouped if you wanted to target things or if you wanted to turn things off. It makes it a lot easier that way. And so in order to, create this new one, so we'll go ahead and actually just name this layer question 1 here really quick. And we'll actually go ahead and just name this our question 1 as well. And so now I'll just go ahead and hit copy and then hit paste here. And that's going to add a question 2 layer, which we'll go ahead and rename all of these as well, just really quick to question 2 and question 2. Now I'll grab onto this layer here and go ahead and move this around the space here. So that way it's not just right on top of the other one here. So we'll go ahead and move it here. Now, this does preserve all the actions in place here, and it will still target the correct thing. So in this case, it still has a relationship to this other question here. So it's going to show question 2 when it's clicked. And so that one's all good to go. Now here, though, we do have to change some of the targeting as well. So we'll want to move this to question 2. And again, kind of just doing the question 2 attempts here. And that's question count still good there. So back to question. Go ahead and move this. Wait, that one's still okay. We're just going to change out this one to question 2 here. Everything else is fine. Back to question, done. So we're getting pretty close here. So I'm just going to add one more question here. So we're going to go ahead and go copy and paste, and I just use my keyboard shortcuts in that instance there. And we'll go ahead and again, change the names here really fast. And then we'll go ahead and just reposition this off over in this direction here. So right now what we have going on here is, there's none of the game over mechanic in here quite yet. But what's going on is, as we get these different questions correct, we're still going to be getting a weighted sense of XP here. Let me go ahead and get this one wrong here. And so now if I go in here again, get another question incorrect, this would typically be where my fail screen would come into place here. So that would be the next thing that we're going to build. But I want to kind of stop here, see if there's any questions, any comments here before we move on.
All right, we have had a few questions in the chat. We do have John Blackman in the chat as well, answering questions, which is
perfect.
Great. Yeah, I love it when he does all of my work for me. So there were some questions about what gets tracked if you are putting this into your LMS. And so if you're using SCORM versus XAPI, I don't know if you want to touch on that just really.
Yeah. So the nice thing with CVR, if you're using SCORM, it's going to get just your basic SCORM information. So your score and your completion status. I don't believe it tracks anything else. John can correct me in the chat if I am incorrect there. For those of you that don't know John, he is the godfather, he is the above all the best. He created CVR, so he is your best source of knowledge. So if I say something and he says no, that's not right, trust him, not me. But then if you go with XAPI, all of these different questions and things, they're actually having XAPI statements built in as you are building out the scenario. So let me go ahead and show you this here, and just as an example of a different scenario that's being built here and actually has some information. So we are actually tracking all the different XAPI statements there, as far as how they're answering questions, how do they hit those things, and a lot of those variables can be tracked. But just kind of as an out of the box information here, you're getting a lot of different information here. So you're getting a lot of different overview, completion status. You're getting a leaderboard here. So this is actually what's being pulled on CVR itself, which is part of the package as well. When you buy CVRs, you'll get access to pulling in this information, as long as you're publishing to a couple, either CenarioVR Live or our hybrid SCORM option, which utilize this XAPI tracking on the back end here. But the thing to me that's the most valuable, and for you as a developer or as an admin, that I think should be the most valuable, is the fact that we are also tracking each XAPI statement that's coming through. So anytime a scenario is attempted, anytime something is clicked, anything seen as experienced, or this is a media clip actually that's experienced, anything that again clicked, answered questions. You're seeing, they got a correct response. Here was their response. This is how long it took them. This is the date. Like you're getting all this information that you can also download here as a Excel file, as a CSV file, and go through and do some data mining. So you can actually see where some of the gaps in the information are. So maybe it took people too long. So maybe like in our case here with this particular scenario, if we notice that everybody for some reason is taking 3 attempts to get question 1 right, okay, maybe that question needs to be rewritten. Maybe we need to go back and train on that information a little bit better, but it gives you a lot better tracking than just your standard score, and gives you that much, higher level of detail in order to be able to, to make judgments and things like that associated with it. So.
All right, that's great.
Okay. Any other questions on there, Stephanie?
We just had another one asking for clarification of, can you upload your own scenes? And yes, you absolutely can. Lots of our clients do that.
Yes. Yeah. So I think given the time that we have left, I do want to show off, again, maybe another example of how our AI wizard here works. So I'd like to just add an additional scene to this. This will actually help out in building out the next portion of this. And again, we're probably not going to get through building this entire scenario because you see how far I've gotten in the last few minutes. And so I just want to, take another, Stephanie, I need to come back again. We're going to take another poll from the audience around, and it doesn't have to relate to the hospital. It can be whatever you want it to be, but I do want to add another scene to this. And simply how I did this again is just either clicking here at add scene, or if you can also come up here and add scene as well. They're both going to do the exact same thing for you. So we're going to click the AI wizard. And again, if you did have your own image or your own scene that you want to upload, you absolutely could do that. Or if there's like a stock image that you're using or something like that, you can pull those in. But let's get another example from somebody. Again, does not have to relate to the hospital.
Okay, spaceship sick bay. I don't know, that might be too close to the hospital. We did have a suggestion earlier for a professor's old style office.
Ooh, I like that.
Let's see what the AI.
Professor's old style office.
And while we are waiting for the AI to generate that, CenarioVR works with most of the different headset devices out there, right? Like Oculus,
it does, yeah.
The Pico, etc. You can use.
Yeah, so the full list is on our website of the ones that we support. And one of the things that I think is really great is we do tend to try to support them as they come out as well. So as new ones come out, we do, try to purchase them to test on and see what we can to make sure that things are still going to work for you. And so like the main ones that we support right now are going to be the Meta, series of headsets. So the Quest 2, the Quest Pro, and Pico tends to be the other one that I hear most often from customers. The Neo 3, I want to say the 3 or 4. They have a bunch of, they have a whole line of them. But there's also some HTC headsets that we work on. There's also, if you're not ready for the headset experience quite yet, or if you're like me and headsets make you nauseous, you can also do it on your mobile phone or your tablet with native apps there on those devices as well, which makes it quite convenient. But everything also can run in a browser on a tablet or even on a headset as well. So you do have those options available to you. However, we still suggest if you're going onto a device that is not a computer that you do download the native app for CVR, because that's going to get you the best experience as far as performance and things like that. Okay, so this is the Professor Old Style Office. I guess it's saying the old style is like early 2000s, 90s.
Yeah,
that monitor there.
The AI is making me feel very old.
Yeah, let's try that one again. Let's just try.
Maybe something like stuffy professor library.
Professor library. Let's.
Janine suggests professor's office in England.
Oh, that would work. Yes.
Yeah. And while we're trying this again, we do have a question. Can you upload scenes captured from VR cameras? So I think that would be like What's the 360 camera we
We're
use?
talking like the GoPro Max Insta 360
Yeah.
cameras that we're talking about. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Those can be uploaded here as well. There's, I mean, it's pretty easy to get off your camera with the included software. So rather those two cameras and then upload it here. There are some compression guidelines to help, make it so that it uploads smoothly. There is a knowledge base article around that as well with some presets for you. So, oh man, they're still not getting it. Like this is not old timey English professor office. Um, it's an office, so
It's
I mean,
definitely an office.
we can use it, but it's definitely not getting me that old like I'm thinking like Hogwarts kind of vibe.
Yeah, maybe we should have put that in, but for the sake of time.
For the sake of time, we'll throw this guy in here. So, um, yeah, so we're in the last few minutes here. So the really what we're trying to get across today is that this use of AI technology for the AI wizard, as well as coming with some text from ChatGPT, like if I go back to my previous scenario as well here. So like this was like this text here. So I'm actually a fairly decent writer myself, at least I think I am. But the time that it would have taken me to come up with kind of the language and things here would have taken a lot longer without these tools as well. And so having that ability to just say, hey, I want to do this, and like if you look at how I explain things to ChatGPT, and Stephanie will tell you this is how I talk sometimes too when I'm explaining things to people. I don't always use the best grammar and things like that. And so it's really getting me some good results just based off of that, along with the AI wizard here, really again, helping to get us good results for our images. It can really take this creation process down from a few days, to get everything down to just a few hours. And so to get everything put together and things like that, like obviously this is a pretty complicated scenario. We're clearly not going to build the rest of it today in this webinar. But this thing, took me probably like within the planning and, trying to figure everything out, as well as testing it a bit, really to get from start to finish was about maybe 8 to 10 hours, maybe. But if I had to go out and shoot all my footage and things like that, like obviously I have to go out and find a castle and a wizard and things to just go shoot for that particular instance, which that might have been hard. But and I hope everyone knows I'm joking about that one. But you think about how long that would take and some of these shoots and things like that, especially, making sure that you're planning everything out so that you don't miss footage, can be kind of a challenge. And so like this helps in those situations where not just when you're getting started or don't have access to a camera, but if you're just needing to get something done really quick, and wanting to make it, more fun and engaging than just a simple, like if you pull up, I don't know, I might get some flack for this, but like Rise, for instance, is a very, quick tool, but honestly, it's boring. There's no one that can convince me that that's interesting. If you want to try, go ahead. But and that's just my honest opinion. That's not just talking as, that's not me talking as ELB employee Josh. That's me talking as Josh. But you think about then the speed at which I can build things in here, get these scenarios out, and probably about the same amount of time now with the AI wizard. It's much more engaging, much more immersive. A lot of people are going to respond to it a lot better. And so that's really what these things are in here. And as AI continues to kind of be on the rise, you're going to see a lot of things from ELB around this. This is not going to be the last AI feature you see from us built into our suite of products. You will see others, I'm sure, coming out, in the long and short term here, to kind of help with this, because it's something that's here to stay. And it is something that we kind of need to get used to. Obviously, there's going to be still some security concerns and things like that. I get it. And I do understand that. But I think, it's something that we should embrace kind of warm-heartedly, not to the point of, obviously, taking the great example of, Skynet from the Terminator movies and things like that. We obviously don't want something like that to occur. But I think that's a pretty long shot that would ever happen. And I think we're, in a space where this is something that we should all really truly embrace and, utilize, especially again, as we're developing e-learning content, because as most of you are probably, shops of one or shops of a few people, anything that can speed up your development and make it faster for you, is something that I think would be of benefit for you to experiment with.